In 2020, I built my home gym in the middle of a pandemic, and I learned a ton of valuable lessons. So what I want to do is go over some considerations that you want to think about when you're designing your own space so you can maybe save some money and make the best gym for your goals. So the first thing you're going to want to consider is your space. You want to find something that has a good sturdy floor, that's far away from other living and sleeping areas, and has good ceiling clearance for overhead movements. Garages and basements are usually ideal because they have a concrete floor, usually away from living spaces, but not everyone has those available. So what I want you to do is try to find a space in your home where you can make big movements. You can kick your legs, stretch your arms up overhead, out to the side, without knocking anything over. That's gonna be where you wanna start. If you're trying to build a similar setup to what I have here, with the rack, the bench, the plates, and the bar, you're gonna want, at minimum, 8 feet by 8 feet. 10 by 10 is pretty ideal though. So if you live in a place where it gets really hot, really cold, or both depending on the time of the year, I recommend getting some sort of fan, something bigger, and a space heater for the winter time. Point number 2 is, what are your goals? Goals are gonna determine not only your space, but the equipment that you're gonna need. So here's where it starts to get fun. You get to start projecting your fitness goals onto the space that you picked out in the previous step. If you wanna do yoga, you probably just need a mat, a block, maybe some bands. If you wanna do CrossFit, you're gonna need all kinds of equipment. You wanna be a triathlete, probably need a bike, treadmill, that kind of stuff. So you get to kind of start picking the equipment that you need, which we're gonna get into in the next step, and seeing how much space that's gonna take up in your home. Consideration number 3 is gonna be gear and equipment. Now you're gonna be tempted to buy a bunch of new gear. I know it's shiny. Try to resist. You don't need a bunch of new equipment. You can, but honestly, gym equipment is built to be pretty sturdy, and if you go with the right brands, you're gonna be fine with used gear. One of the first things you're gonna wanna get is something to protect your floor from the weights, from you shuffling around, doing jumping jacks, whatever it may be. You can find gym mats at pretty much any sporting goods store. You can find them online. You can find people selling them used. For bigger gyms where people are using heavy weights, I often see people purchasing horse stall mats because they're cheaper, they're thicker, they're more durable. Now, because resistance training, i.e. strength training, weight training, can benefit anyone in any goal at any age, I'm gonna focus mostly on equipment that will benefit people for resistance training. Now, the first step, because it's the cheapest and generally has the least amount of resistance, is resistance bands. Now, these range from basically giant rubber bands to really fancy bands with handles and a bunch of different resistances you can adjust. So I'll put some links down in the description. This is a great starting point because they don't take up a ton of space and they're very cheap. Now, the next logical step in your progression from bands is going to be dumbbells. Provide a little bit more resistance, increase the weight a little bit. Now, you can go and buy a whole bunch of sets of dumbbells, but that's gonna take up a ton of space and probably cost you more money in the end. What I recommend is getting some adjustable dumbbells. Now, there's tons of different brands out there, but I highly recommend the Bowflex adjustable dumbbells. Now, they have 2 different kinds, but it's essentially like having a couple dozen variations and weights of dumbbells in this tiny little space. They are expensive, so I recommend buying them used, and I can vouch for having these for a decade and using them pretty much the whole time. They still work like brand new, no issues whatsoever. So highly recommend getting an adjustable dumbbell set to save you space and also give you a ton of variation. Now, there's only so much you can do with dumbbells by themselves, so my next recommended purchase would be an adjustable bench. So something where you can adjust it from a flat up to an incline and back down, so you can add some versatility and add literally dozens of exercises to your routine. So the next natural progression, whenever the dumbbells aren't doing it for you anymore, is a barbell. Now, this could be a whole video in and of itself. There's so many different variations of barbells for different sports and different types of lifting, but I recommend for your first bar, since you're not gonna be using it like a CrossFitter or Olympic lifter, just go with something nice and cheap. Just get a cheap barbell from some reputable site, and I'll post some links in the description. Get some used plates from Craigslist, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, something like that. You don't need to go ham with your barbell and plates just yet. To start, just get something used. Last but not least, we're gonna talk about probably the most expensive thing that you're gonna buy when you're building a home gym, and that is a rack. Now, there's 3 main types of racks. There's the squat stand, which is essentially just, it just has cups like this at the top of 2 metal bars that basically just hold the bar when you're not using it. There's a half rack, which is shallower than what I have right here. It has safety bars that'll jut out from the side, and that's, you lift outside the rack. Sometimes they'll have pull-up bars at the top as well. And then what I have, you can see, is a full rack, and you see the safety bars there in the back. So you can set your safety bar wherever you want it, but especially if you're working out alone, you need to have a rack that has a safety bar. You lift within the rack for the most part. Some lifts you can do, like overhead press, you have to do it outside the rack, but for the most part you lift within the rack, and this is the most expensive option. Now I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I really like Grind Fitness equipment for my rack. I bought this last year. This thing is sturdy as hell. So I really enjoy this rack. Ultimately, you want to choose a rack that fits your budget and fits your space. I can fit a full rack in an 8x8 space with enough room to move around the sides. I'm going to quickly hit on accessories like dip belts, squat belts, wrist rollers, the little things, whatever these are called. Can't remember. The things that hold the plates on the bar. Words. Weight vests, etc. Those kinds of things are going to add to the value and not take up a ton of space. Last point I want to make is about storage, because when you're in a home gym setup, you don't often have a lot of space to put a ton of racks and have a bunch of hooks and stuff all over the wall. But I do recommend trying to use as much vertical space as you can so you can save on that horizontal space. Now, there are places you can store your barbell. I just keep it simple and store it on the rack itself. When it comes to accessories, I'll just put them on my plate storage rack, which I love this thing. It's fantastic. It keeps all my plates off the floor and stores them all in this nice vertical space. If you get these little command hooks, you can hang lighter accessories on those on the wall and just get them off your floor. Well, I hope y'all learned something today. Consider this video to be an open forum for any kinds of suggestions, constructive criticisms, gear recommendations down in the comments. Please share with each other so we can all build our home gyms, find good deals, and get fit. And as always, if you like this video, please like it. If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe. Stay disciplined, intentional, and grateful, and I will see you in the next one.